love the name.
Hey, we appreciate that, man. And let's get right into it. So you played from your freshman year was 2000, and then you told me your last game was the Peach Bowl win against the Gators during the '04 season, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. So I mean, talk to us. I mean, you were a part of one of the great football dynasties in all of college football history. What was that like? I mean, going into the Heck every day, knowing that your goal is the national championship. What was that like with those high expectations?
Well, I think for me, I came from a small town in southern Illinois of about 3,000 people, and so a part of what I had going on for me and benefited me is I didn't know any better. You know what I mean? Like I didn't know in the moment how amazing things really were, and so I came to work and I listened to the guys and the culture that we had on that team was so unbelievable. And, you take it for granted when you're a part of it, but it's something you don't see very often where, every guy on the team is treated the same. Like I was probably in the top 100 guys on the team, and, Ed Reed and everybody else would treat me exactly the same. And we would push each other exactly the same. And, we also had this culture of we wanted people that were younger than us to take our jobs if that meant we were going to be better. And so that's something you don't see a lot nowadays. And that's what it took to be that great of a dynasty at that time.
So, I mean, being on that team, you would have been in the same position room as Bryant McKinney. And in practice and drills, I mean, you'd be going up against guys like Vince Wilfork and, just the other incredible defensive players that we had there in the front seven. What was that like? Was there guys that you'd go up against them in practice or see them in drills and, just think like, holy crap. Like I did not know that humans were made like that. I mean, tell me about stuff like that.
Yeah. I that was every day, especially my first 3 years. My junior year, I wasn't on scout team anymore, but, those first 3 years going against Vince Wilfork, William Joseph, Andrew Williams, Jerome McDougal, Jamal Green, it was, Dan Morgan, John Vilma, DJ Williams. I mean, that was every day, and it was awesome. I mean, that's the thing people don't think about when they look at our guys' NFL careers. When we played ones versus ones in practice, it was, a game. We played at that high of a level. And so there are guys that their careers were probably shortened because of the competition they saw in practice every day at Miami, to be honest. But, it was definitely something that, you can't help but appreciate. In the moment, you don't really realize it. When you get hit by Dan Morgan and you're trying to block him and he goes and makes a tackle, you don't appreciate that in the moment, but looking back, you're like, wow, that was some really awesome things.
I mean, I'm getting just chills hearing you talk about this. And during your career, and I think my statistics are correct, you went undefeated against Florida State all the years that you were there, correct?
And Florida.
Yep. And so, those were, so 2002, I went to my first Canes game. It was the Florida State game, and that's when I really got introduced to that rivalry, and I've hated Florida State with a passion ever since. What was that? Because that's back when, both teams were ranked in the top 10. Tell the audience what it was like with that rivalry game, the week leading up, getting into the Orange Bowl or going into Doak Campbell Stadium in Tallahassee. What was the intensity like with that rivalry game and the importance of that?
Well, first off, when that week started, the Florida State chant music would be being played in our locker room. And, there were many of us that would, back in the day when we had Napster and all those MP3 downloading things, we would pull up the FSU fight chant. I think actually Chris Ricks had a website for like himself to promote like himself as a player, and I think it had the background music, so we would literally put that website on and just let it play and just stay focused with that. It was definitely, everything was intense, and it was something we wanted. But I'll never forget the first year we beat them in 2000. Butch Davis is our head coach. He told us that he met, I guess it was like maybe 2 years prior, he met Bobby Bowden in the middle of the field. And Bobby Bowden, I don't think he meant to say it like this, but he basically said, "It's a shame this isn't a rivalry anymore." And so I think that really motivated him and motivated our players. And in that meeting, he talked about it. We all got these shirts that said 10-7-0-0 for the date of that game. And I think I still have mine somewhere. But I mean, we wanted to win that game. And, for us to come out wide right 3, the drive at the end, Shockey getting that touchdown. It was a pretty amazing experience for my first taste at FSU. And then, 2002 was wide left. And, again, just a crazy game. Everybody is in it the entire time, no matter how good one team is or the other. But it was a knockout, drag out fight. And one thing that people don't always talk about, and this is just kind of a funny thing, but that 2002 game you were at was Jay-Z and Beyonce's first date. They were at our game on the sideline.
Really? That's a true story?
Yeah, you can look it up on you can search it on the internet. You can see a newspaper article, but yeah, they were there on the sideline, and it was just a cool thing, and but yeah, I was at that game.
Awesome. So our previous guest that we just had on a few moments ago before you, he was a student the same years that you were a player, actually, from 2000 to 2004.
Okay.
And we asked him what it was like to be on campus and be a student, during this incredible time in the history of Miami football, and just what the culture was like, and just the hype surrounding the team and the games, and so what's it like from the player's perspective? I mean, how did you get treated on campus, and what was it like being college football royalty for 4 years?
Well, I think the coolest thing was that, and I hope this doesn't sound bad, but it was like there were the athletes, and then there were people that could afford to go to Miami. You know what I mean? And so a lot of times, we'd be walking around in our sweats and our issued gear, and everybody else in class is dressed up like they're ready to go out on South Beach or something at the night, and so it was there was definitely a division in that you could see that we were kind of out on our own, but the respect we got from people, and the camaraderie. I mean, I think I had as many friends at Miami that were not athletes that I did that were, even though at that time every sport was at the Hecht, so it was almost like its own little community there, with the training room, the weight room. We all shared everything, and so everybody kind of had each other's backs. It was honestly hit or miss with professors if they wanted football players in their class or not. But we always had the best people helping us and the most support possible. But it was awesome to have classes with people, and you get to meet them, and I still have friendships with some of them, and it's an awesome thing.
That's the greatest. I love hearing these kind of stories, and I mean, I grew up loving the Canes. I still obviously have a bad obsession with the Hurricanes because I love them so much, and I just love hearing about those good old days. One of my favorite parts about those teams was your quarterback, Ken Dorsey. I think he's one of my favorite Hurricanes of all time, and I think to become the greatest team in college football history, you got to have that leader at quarterback. Dorsey, he didn't have the best arm. He wasn't a guy like Cam Newton. He wasn't a guy, like Baker Mayfield. He didn't have all the intangibles, but he still led that team. Talk about Ken Dorsey as, a quarterback, as a leader, and just that guy who could control that team.
Between Dorsey and Ed Reed and Joaquin Gonzalez, those three were kind of the leadership core of that team. And, Dorsey, again, going with the idea that, everybody's treated the same. I actually had the opportunity to like go golfing with him and do other things and had a decent friendship with him. And, he just was so committed, and it was what he was there for. And he wasn't trying to go out and party a whole bunch. And he had his wife now, which was his girlfriend at the time, played soccer. And so he was committed to everything that you could be committed to. And we'd have our summer workouts, and he would run the offense, and Ed Reed would run the defense. And those summer 7-on-7s were as intense as, anything you'd see. But just his leadership, his sacrifice, his, willingness to say what's needed when it needs to be said. He was never shy to talk and get people fired up. And he just commanded everybody's respect. There was nobody that would listen to Ken Dorsey and what he had to say and not want to do that for him, because they knew how committed he was. And so that's like the biggest thing with him, is just the commitment level. And I think the level-headedness, because, he could have gone out as a junior. That was the thing. Like, everybody was thinking he was going to leave as a junior, because he was actually projected like first round as a junior. And he wanted to stay because he said, I don't think that I am going to get that good of a look in the NFL. And he said, I want to work my arm strength and these other things. And he decided to stay for his senior year. So, we're all really thankful he did that. But, he was, again, committed and just a leader beyond all leaders. If you talk about it like a field general, he's a field general.
So 2000, you guys, obviously lose to Washington in week 2, but then you rattle off, I think it was 10 straight victories. You beat number 1 Florida State. You beat number 2 Virginia Tech. You deserve a shot to play in the national championship. You obviously, you don't get that chance, but you beat Florida. The next year, you guys become the greatest college football team of all time. Take me through that Rose Bowl against Nebraska and just all the emotions that came with it.
Well, for me, it had like special meaning, because I know it was like one of the first times that like any non-Big Ten, Pac-10 team had gone to the Rose Bowl for like 50 years. And growing up in the Midwest, the Rose Bowl is all you hear about. And so getting a chance to go play in the Rose Bowl, I was excited. That week, it was a fun week. We got to go to the Tonight Show with Jay Leno and meet him. And at that time, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire with Regis Philbin was big. And they shot an episode that was like us versus Nebraska. That was really cool. So the whole week leading up to it was a fun experience. A little less eventful than Bourbon Street in Florida, but that's a good thing. We were pretty focused. And but that game, it was just a bizarre game, because we knew we were going to win. And it wasn't like we were, because I'll admit there are losses that we had through my career there. We only had 7 or so of them, but in those losses, there were times that we played down to the level of the competition and just couldn't wake up soon enough. Or we had games where we were behind and played to the level of the competition. I think we were firing all cylinders that night. We get that easy pass to Andre Johnson to start the game. Shockey's on fire. Portis is on fire. Our defense is stymieing them, But, we were really well prepared for it. This is one of my memories of the Rose Bowl week, is being on scout team, because every time that we would mess up, because we practiced at the Coliseum, at the USC Coliseum, every time that we would mess up, we would have to run all the way to the top of the Coliseum and come back. So, I mean, we were taking things seriously. We were running up the stairs a lot. But that game, you know, I mean, it was just surreal. And, you know, it was, you know, Shaquille O'Neal was on our sideline, and, you know, it was crazy. And, you know, I mean, my personal story with it,